There is no God except God Almighty. All the rest are manufactured. There's no other gods. God's not competing with other gods. He is the only God. There is only one God. The rest is demonic and foolishness. But there's no other gods to worship. And yet people do it all the time. And they put up their own God, and they manufacture their own God, and they say, well, I like a God that's like this, and like this, and like this. Well, that's really good. You created your own God. And somehow, he's going to have sin as a part of him. So you can go and watch that movie about Zeus, and what is it? The battle of the Titans. What is it? The Clash. Oh yes. How many of you have seen that? The Clash of the Titans. Some of you have seen that. The Clash of the Titans. All right. If you go see that, I don't know what it's like, but I'm going to tell you. Zeus. I was told by someone that saw. Zeus. He does some immoral thing. Why? Well, because he's not God. And he has sin. And any God we create is going to be sinful and have sinful parts. Why? Because we created him. Now, who created God? No one. He just is. So he has no trace of sin in him. Number 4, he is high above any other, and no one can compare to him. Psalm 40, verse 5 says, many, O Lord, my God, are the wonders you have done. The things you planned for us, no one can recount to you. Were I to speak and tell of them, they would be too many to declare. God is above compare. So when we consider holiness, you can't compare. And when people try to compare, they are fools and foolish and say, well, their God that they've created is better. Yes, really. It's interesting when we talk about comparative religions, and Mary Jo was watching a video by Ravi Zacharias, and on it he was talking about how religions are all equal and they all point to God, right? And they all agree on most things. Well, except for sin and salvation, redemption, and creation, and except all the major things. We don't agree. And when they create gods like that, they create all kinds of a mess, and there's no one to compare. Number 5, God's holiness pervades his entire being and shapes all of his attributes. So, his love is a holy love, his mercy is a holy mercy, and even his anger and wrath are holy anger and holy wrath. These concepts are difficult for humans to grasp, just as God is difficult for us to understand in his entirety. God is holy in everything he does. And number C says, holiness is our distinctiveness from the world around us. We are distinctive because we are holy. Distinctiveness. In Leviticus 11 and 19, we had already read earlier, he was instructing them to be, this paragraph, right? He was instructing them to be distinct from the other nations by giving them specific regulations to govern their lives. They were to be distinct. They were supposed to be different. Okay? They were supposed to be distinct. So when you think of this idea of being holy, you think of distinctiveness, that you are different than the world. Something different about you. Not just you're going to heaven. Not just that you've prayed. There's something distinctive. When God chose the children of Israel, he said, you guys are going to be a distinctive people. Israel is God's chosen nation. That's written in your outline there. God's chosen nation. And God has set them apart from all other people groups. They are his special people. So they're distinct. They are chosen. They are special. The New Testament calls you peculiar. I like King James Version. We are a peculiar people. We are distinct. We are chosen. We're peculiar. We're special. And then your paragraph again. And consequently, they were given standards that God wanted to live by so the world would know they belong to him. All right? There's all the words in that paragraph. So you should have distinct, chosen, special, standards, world. That's a good paragraph. The way God has chosen the children of Israel, he said to them, you are my people now. I have chosen you. I brought you out of Egypt. I gave you this new land. I told you wherever your foot stood and took, you would win. I told you to stand up against them, fight, and to kill them all and wipe them out. And I told you you'd win the victory. And sure enough, they did whenever they were obedient. But then they would retreat from that. And what was so wrong about just getting an Asherah pole out there or some kind of an altar out there to Baal? What's the big deal about that to God? What's his problem? Can't they just love him and have their other little things on the side? No, because it ruins the sense of distinctiveness. It ruins a sense of being special. And God wanted his children to be special, to be different. So God has called you and me into his kingdom to be set apart, to be special, so that we show to the world we're not the same. We're different. And if we're not different, what's wrong? Some people say, well, I just can't keep things right in my life. Well, you're not different then. Part of what happened to Israel is every time they would stop being distinctive and be different and be like the ones around them, which is what God told them not to do, all of a sudden they got mistreated and all kinds of things would happen to them. And when they got all kinds of diseases or they were overrun by their enemies, the first thing they do is say, "Oh God, we're sorry." And they'd come back to him, and then the Lord would bring a judge for them, and the judge would help them win, whether it was Samson or someone else, and they would win, and then they'd have 40 years of peace where they'd serve the Lord, and then the guy would die, or the lady would die, and then they'd go back again to worshiping other gods. And it was this back and forth, in and out of distinctiveness. And it's much like Christians today, in and out of distinctiveness. Oh, we had that lesson on forgiveness. Oh, I forgot to forgive for the last 2 years. Now my life is, it's just worn out again. I just can't stay happy. I don't know what's wrong. I'm so depressed. Okay, you need a judge to come along and say, come on, forgive again. What is the problem? A lot of the time, the problem is the lack of understanding of your call to holiness and being distinctive for the purposes of the world to see, in this people I will prove my strength. Now, what God is saying to you and to me is, be holy as I am holy in your behavior, because I have called you to be different. And for that reason, I am holy, now you be holy. Does the world know you belong to God? Not because you profess it, but because you live it. You understand the difference? I had a church member here, one of our church members, who came to me and he said, he was talking about a man that he was knew about that had looked like he had a gambling problem, looked like he gambled some money he shouldn't have, and also had a drinking problem. But he's a Christian because he prayed a prayer one day. Of course, he doesn't go to church either. So he doesn't go to church. He has a drinking problem, has a gambling problem. But he's a Christian. You say, really? What happened to the distinctiveness of holiness? Well, it never got lived. Probably not a Christian. It is the distinctiveness, not the profession of our mouth, that proves whether or not we really know him.